And welcome. Tonight is Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. This is the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is 7 o'clock p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone should have a copy of the agenda in front of them. Are there any corrections to the agenda? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next up, we have the minutes from our May 14th, 2018 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 5 through 9. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next, we will go to visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? If you do, please raise your hand, and then when that agenda item comes up, which will be shortly, we will, I told some of you, I think some of you came in after that, we will recognize you, and you can come up, and we try to limit it to 5 minutes. Name, home address, all we require, and then you can speak. So I'm assuming, do we know how many are speaking? There's one, two, I see about a half a dozen hands or so. If you change your mind and want to speak later, that's fine too. I'm assuming you're all here for the Tobacco 21? Is anybody here for any other agenda item? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have, are there any visitors in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any item whatsoever? Seeing no one, we will move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 10 and concludes with the resolution on pages 31 and 32, and includes the following budgeted purchases in excess of $7,500 to Emergency Response Solutions for 10 SCBA tanks, which are the
Air packs for firefighters.
self-contained, thank you, I forgot what the first self-contained breathing apparatus for $7,700. To Blasco Building Supply for 8x12 vinyl shed with a 5-foot roll-up door for $1,800. To Salmon for repair of 3 160 kilovolt regulators for $9,213.75. To Ziegler Cat for road grader repairs for $9,779.50. Following license renewals. These are all for the same date, and I'm not going to give the addresses, but for on sale, excuse me, Embassy Bar, Flame Bar, Gustavus, Kingpins, and Redmond Club. For Sunday on sale, 3rd Street Tavern, Embassy Bar, Flame Bar, Gustavus, Kingpins, and Redmond Club. For off-sale liquor, the Embassy Bar, Flame Bar, the Market Wine and Spirits, and MGM Liquor Warehouse. A wine license to Jake's Pizza of St. Peter for 119 Broadway for July 1st. I guess they are all the same dates yet. July 1st, 2018 to June. 3.2 on sale beer license to Godfather's Pizza and to Jake's Pizza. A 3.2 off Family Fresh Market, Freedom Value Center, Holiday Station Stores, Quick Trip, and Shopko Hometown. A tree worker license for Roots Up Tree Service from May 30th, 2018 to April 30th, 2019. A temporary on sale liquor license, temporary soft drink license, and temporary gambling license to the Church of St. Peter for 1801 Broadway Avenue for September 30th, 2018. Plus the schedule of disbursements for May 10th, 2018 through May 23rd, 2018. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? John.
I have a question for Pete or Todd, whoever knows about the KVA regulators for the substation. We had 6. We are in the process of replacing all 6. We've replaced 3 with, I assume, new ones, and sent out the 3 to be repaired. Now, when they come back, do the remaining 3 be replaced with repaired ones? And so we'll have a mixture of new and repaired in the substation?
Yes.
And the ones that come back have and then the 3 that are still there that will be taken out, we'll send them out to be repaired, and they'll go on the shelf as backup.
I'll defer that one to Pete. I don't believe that's the case, but Pete, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
What will happen is those radiators will be repaired, and then once we do some additional tying over and switching and replacement of the banks that are there, we will salvage the repaired ones and anything that has value and trade them in on either transformers or other equipment.
Okay.
But if we were to have a failure or lightning strike John and need to order something like that new, it would be in the 20,000 plus range. So repairing 3 for 9,000 is a very safe bet.
So we will have something on the shelf in,
Yeah,
In
until we
inventory?
do the other portion of the work, whether that's now,
All right.
next year or the year after.
but we're not buying all 6 new. We're only
Right,
buying the 3
correct.
new. Okay. And the warranty's for 3 years, and that's once it's placed in service, or that's once we
Once it's
receive it back?
repaired, because they
Once it's
don't know
repaired.
whether it's going on the shelf or going back in service, and so.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Thanks, Pete.
The resolution approving the consent agenda appears on pages 31 and 32. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Koenig.
Aye.
Mayor Zima.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved. Next, we will go to unfinished business, and the item we have up tonight is the tobacco purchase regulation. Todd, you want to
Members, I
introduce
can-
us?
Yeah, I can start this out just a little bit. This is certainly something that the council discussed previously and had voted on previously, and it was defeated in April by a 3-3 vote. One of you was not here at the meeting. Under your rules, any council member can ask for the items to be placed on the agenda, and there was a request to place this item back on the agenda. State statute allows for a notification. My view, and Jim, with consultation with your city attorney, was that since it was defeated last time, the process needed to restart. So that means that we provided the state statutorily required notice to all license holders. And so that's been done and done appropriately and in conformance with the state statute. The ordinance really does 2 things. Let me break that down into 3 pieces and then provide one change from the last time that you had discussion on this. First of all, it would make it illegal to sell to persons under 21. Now, there are 2 provisions in your ordinance that talk about that, so that's why there's 3 things. 2 relate to that. The third relates to using false ID to try and purchase tobacco products. The last change, or the remaining change from last time we discussed this, is that last time we talked about that it would be effective upon publication. Because of the timeline here, I just frankly arbitrarily wrote within the ordinance that this would occur August 1st. It's a great date for lots of state-regulated issues and statutes to come into place. And so it's a great kind of milestone to have this happen, giving people time to sign, have training, and doing that kind of stuff should there be a change that's made. Memo is included in your packet, the ordinance providing for those 3 modifications plus the setting of the date for effective, if you approve it, on August 1st are included in your packet. That's all on page 35 and 36.
Okay. Anyone else in the council want to add anything or say anything before we listen to some of our citizens? If not, whoever wants to start, come on up, Sandy. I feel like we're on, what is that?
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. Price is right at the same time. You might want to pull the microphone a little closer to you.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Renor. I'm at 1921 Rock Ridge Lane here in St. Peter. Mayor Zeman, Council, Mr. Prafke, and everyone, I just really want to thank you for recognizing the significance of Tobacco 21 and bringing it back. That was very thoughtful, and I'm more than appreciative. You've heard me speak as a nurse before from public health about the perspective of protecting and preventing. And indeed, those are major responsibilities of public health. But at this moment, I just want to briefly share a few personal reasons of why I do what I do in tobacco and why I really want to prevent our youth from ever starting. My dad died at the age of 71 of COPD. He was a teen smoker. I consider that a preventable death. His death certificate says COPD, and that is largely due to smoking. If I were my dad sitting here right now, I'm 66. I would be looking at 5 years left of my life. I would be on continuous oxygen. I would find it really hard and quite scary that I wouldn't be able to breathe very well, not to mention inhalers and the quality of your life just really being affected. My 36-year-old stepbrother died at the age of 36 from throat cancer. He was a tobacco user. I have two brothers that started smoking as teens. Back in the day when you could buy cigarettes out of a vending machine, my youngest brother tells me for 45 cents. And that youngest brother just had a CAT scan of his lungs today. I didn't think I'd be sad about this, but it's because his chest x-ray indicated something suspicious. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me after being a smoker all his life and looking at him and he's losing weight and he's having all kinds of health problems and being called back to get a CAT scan, that maybe there'll be something serious with him and it might be related to tobacco and smoking all of these years. To me, Tobacco 21 is not about war or age or commerce or business. It's all about health. My dad and my brother both returned from war, but neither one ever returned from tobacco addiction. Your action this evening is obviously very important to our community, so thank you for bringing it back. And it's important to our state. And I just have this feeling that, you know, wherever we start, it's going to be this great ripple. And it may not be just our message to Minnesota, but when Minnesota decides this is the right thing to do, all of the surrounding states and more throughout our country. And it will just be one step toward another new norm in protecting our youth. So thank you for hearing me this evening. And thank you for all the work that you do for us.
Sandy, before you leave, does anybody
Yes.
have any questions for Sandy? Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Sandy.
Thank you.
Next, whoever wants to come up. Yep, doesn't make any difference.
Go ahead.
Name and home address, please.
Hello. Just move this up. My name is Jacob Urkel. My home address is 46743 County Road 13, just out of town here. And I am here representing Smoker's Choice here in St. Peter. So no one can really argue with the importance of health and the relation to health that this bill has. But in our current situation where the purchase of tobacco under 21 is legal in almost every city around us and in this state, we run into a problem of this not doing much to help with the health of the people of this town. If this bill was to go through, it is a 10-minute drive, give or take, over to Mankato to make all of your purchases. Now, my biggest point here is not the loss of money that the town would see in tobacco revenue. It's more so the bigger picture outside of that for the revenue of the city as a whole. I see groups of people under the age of 21 that smoke cigarettes driving to Mankato to make these purchases and doing more than just purchasing tobacco when they're in Mankato. If you're going to make that commitment to drive over there, you're not just going to pick up and then come back. You're looking at food, so dining, lots of different restaurants in Mankato. You're looking at shopping. Even though St. Peter now has something like Shopko, which is a nice addition to the stores in town. You're looking at a semi-department store that can really help make it so people can get more of what they need here in town. There's still a larger selection in Mankato, so a lot of their shopping would be done in Mankato. And then also gas is another big factor. If you're going to drive over there and pick up cigarettes, you're more likely to buy your gas at the Quick Trip over there versus the Quick Trip here in town. Now, I've lived in this town my entire life. Not so much in the town, but just outside the town. I went to high school, middle school, preschool, everything here. And I've seen this city go through massive changes in the time I've been here. When I went to middle school, me and all of my friends still just viewed this smaller town as, kind of a country town, a lot of an agriculture feel. As the years have passed, we've gotten more and more things in the town that have pulled us away from that feel. We got Shopko, we now have Dunkin' Donuts. The town is slowly growing and gaining more, more of a footing against Mankato in the commerce field. And I don't want to see something like this stop St. Peter from that continued growth, and not stop it, but to hinder it at all, because I like the progress that this town has made. I'm proud to be a part of this community and see it grow more going into the future. Thank you. That's just about all I have to say.
You're good. Questions? Anybody have questions for Jake?
I have one. And first, I would like to thank you for coming here tonight. I know you may suspect that you're possibly in the minority here, and I know it's not always easy to come up and speak on these issues. So thank you for coming up and sharing your perspective. That's
Thank you for
always
hearing me.
really important. One question I have, and forgive my ignorance on this, I know I've seen before when people are purchasing cigarettes or alcohol, they'll get carded, and in some places you enter in a date into your system. Do you guys track the ages of people who purchase from you? Is there a master database or anything along those lines?
I do not believe the smoke shop here in St. Peter
Okay.
keeps track of any birth dates of the people that purchase. We do ID all of our customers.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you had any way of estimating what percentage of your business I mean, that's really hard for you to say. I'm sure you're looking at all those IDs, but that's a lot to extrapolate out. What percentage of your
Jake,
business?
let me interject. Are you one of the owners?
No, I'm
You're
not.
not one of them. I spoke to one of the owners,
Oh, thank you.
and he indicated to me that his sales to 18 to 20, 21-year-olds was approximately 20 to 25% of their business. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
And-
what he indicated to me.
Most of that comes from the fact that when Gustavus is out of session, we see a very large drop in sales, because a lot of the people we sell to are the people that go to Gustavus, and a majority of them are under 20, or about half of them technically would be under 21.
Okay. Anyone else? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next. Edie? Name and home address, please.
My name is Edie Torstensen. I live at 809 South 7th Street here in St. Peter. And I'm speaking first for the League of Women Voters, which has it has a league here in town. But the state supports state laws, city ordinances, and law enforcement efforts designed to promote chemical health. And we believe that from the time that a person is born until the time they die, they have a right to chemical health. At least they have a right to that help and the guidance in that direction. But I also want to speak personally as a former smoker. I picked up smoking when I was 18, when I started college. And I think that's pretty typical. And I smoked occasionally, but I have to admit that smoking is a very addictive habit. probably the hardest of all to shake off, they say. And it tends to escalate. So by the time I was in graduate school, I was smoking quite a bit. I smoked off and on until I was about 40, when my daughter came home from school and she announced that she was a member of the smoke-free generation, and I better shape up. and she was a bossy young lady, but she was right. And from that time on, I was done smoking. I want to speak as a person who smoked because I think that the effects of smoking, even in youth, are lifelong. And already I share a little bit of the experience that we heard from the first person to testify. Even though I haven't smoked for over 30 years, I do have some problems with breathing, and I do rely on an inhaler now and then. And I can't be around a person who smokes without feeling the effects. Now, some of you who might have started, someone in the room may have started smoking when they were young like I am. You know that first puff is no fun. There's a lot of peer pressure involved, but it really isn't a very good thing for your lungs, and your lungs are telling you that right from the start. The difference is, I think, when you're 18, you do yield more often to peer pressure, and I think that you don't have the judgment, frankly, to tell yourself this isn't good for you. Some people do, and some people don't, but I'm here to speak for the people who don't. And I really do feel that if St. Peter does pass this resolution, that it's also supporting parents who wish that their children wouldn't smoke. I think it supports young people in the decisions that they make. I can say that I smoked when I was 18, but I never bought any liquor until I was 21. And that was because it wasn't legal. And I just want to put that's my 2 cents, and I thank you very much for this open mic.
Thank you. Edie, just hold on. Questions for Edie
yeah,
before she leaves? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Next up. Name and home address, please.
Hi, my name is Andy Kukachka. I live at 800 West College Avenue, and I have been a year-round resident for the past 3 years. I would like to reiterate Urkel's point that...
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
Could you spell your last name for us?
Yes. Kukachka.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. I would like to reiterate Urkel's point that as somebody who is under the age of 21, if it is decided that the age be raised to 21 in St. Peter, I will indeed take almost all of my business to Mankato as a result of that. And if not Mankato, I will result to either stockpiling or buying on the internet, because bans within certain age groups, as we know, are not necessarily the most successful thing. I also have a question for the council. So I am a e-cigarette user, and I am also a CBD user as somebody who suffers from chronic pain. And I would like to know if this would bar everybody under the age of 21 from tobacco shops in general, specifically with tobacco products, or would this also affect the sales of, say, kratom, which helps with heroin addiction, as well as CBD products?
I don't have a definite answer on that. I don't know if we've approached that, have we, Todd?
I can tell you, in response to most of your question, is that for anything that relates to e-cigarettes or vaping, it would not criminalize its use under 21, but it would fall under the same rules or regulations as does tobacco.
Okay.
For the purchase of.
For the purchase of.
Okay.
Technically, the sale of it. It would not criminalize possession, criminalize the sale to anyone under 20.
Okay. In addition, I would like to say that as a member of the working class, I farm over the summers. That's my job. I grow food for you guys. I use cigarettes as kind of like a little bit of a work break, a way to decompress, and I think that cigarettes and tobacco products have long since been geared towards members of the working class. I feel that given the recent Supreme Court passing that workers cannot necessarily unionize, if I am old enough to work in a workplace that will not allow me to fight for my rights, I feel like I'm at least old enough to buy my own cigarette and decide if I can put things into my body. And that's about all I have.
All right, thank you. Questions, Reen? All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Next up, Anyone else? Oh, sorry.
Hello, my name is Kelly McEntee of 2120 Arlington Trail, North Mankato. Today I had the opportunity to speak to a young man here in St. Peter. He was 17 years old and he shared with me his support for this policy, for Tobacco 21. He stated that he realized as we were talking about it, how easily he can obtain tobacco from his peers in his school, being a 17-year-old closely connected to 18-year-olds that are in the same halls in the school every day. And he stated that he does see a problem with tobacco use amongst his peers, especially with the young men in smokeless tobacco products. We know that youth use rates are on the rise for the first time in 17 years. This is our opportunity to do something about that, to stop those rates from continuing to rise, to stop young people that are under the age of 18, under the age of 21 to obtain these products. When we're increasing the age, we're removing that social circle, that setting where young people are able to obtain tobacco. No one can argue the importance of health. That was stated earlier, and I want to reiterate that statement. You can't argue the importance of health, and you've heard experts say at the last couple of meetings here the impact of tobacco, the impact of nicotine, and the addiction that it causes to the young adolescent brain. We know that it it causes reduced productivity in the workplace. And since our last meeting here in April, several cities have passed Tobacco 21 regardless of what their neighbors are doing in the communities. Most recently, Minneapolis voted unanimously for this policy after listening to the comments, concerns, and arguments of their constituents. We know this policy will save lives, and we can't wait another day to seize this opportunity to be a leader of health, be a leader here in Minnesota, and increase the age to purchase tobacco to 21.
Questions? All right, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, come on, Mary.
I wasn't good at talk. I'm Mary Hildebrandt.
Couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't help myself. Public Health Director here in Nicollet County. I live at 204 North 5th in St. Peter. And I was just reading today from my newsletter that comes from the Blue Zones. I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Zones. It's another favorite of Sandry Renor's. It's about areas of our world that have it's noticed that they have longevity, long lives, and what makes them be so healthy. And the story that I read today was about a community in Finland, and I guess I think when I think of Scandinavia, I think of really hale and hearty people. And this community in Finland had one of the highest, or maybe the highest, heart disease rate in the world. And it was found that their diet was high in fat, and they were smoking at an unusually high rate. And the community decided to hire a wellness person who within 5 years greatly turned around. I don't have the statistics on top of my head, but greatly reduced the number of heart attacks, the number of deaths due to their heart disease. And of course, one of the biggest factors with heart disease is tobacco use, smoking. So I just am always in awe of these. We talk about data and we talk about examples of places that have turned their world around and made it healthier. And I think that by passing this is one of the ways we can turn our world around, keep moving in a healthy direction, and move forward with healthier kids, healthier families. So thank you for again looking at this. And if you just would like to make a decision, then we can stop bugging you.
Questions for Mary? Mary, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You brought up the heart problems with the Scandinavian people. Question I have, where, you being in the, doing what you do, where does childhood obesity and juvenile diabetes come into play as far as problems for people later on in life?
Oh, very much. That's a big problem. That's why our obesity rate is so high, is that we're growing a generation of kids who are more obese than it used to be. If you look at the statistics, that age of obesity has crept down to where we have lots of kids, school age and younger, even toddlers that are obese.
I guess my question to you then is, if that's a problem, do you guys have shirts for that too?
Well, I don't.
Should we say, hey, McDonald's, maybe you shouldn't sell food to anybody under the age of 21?
That's not my issue today.
I know it's not your
It might
issue
be my
today.
issue tomorrow.
Okay.
But today I'm here to speak to tobacco.
Okay. All
So.
right. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mayor? No, I thought you raised your hand. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address, please. Yeah, I knew that, but Barb doesn't know that.
My name is Runner Barr, and I live at 704 Grace Street.
VAHR?
Yes, VAHR.
Thank you.
I just want to come up and say a couple words. I've just been listening, and I think everybody has had really good points. For me, it comes down to it's a choice. Whether you can make that choice at 18 or 21, or I mean, even if you go to France and it's 14 as soon as you can reach over the counter. It's just a choice. For me, I never really liked cigarettes growing up. I couldn't even stand the smell of them until I went to France and everybody over there smokes. But I got back and I was like, all right, maybe I could give it a try. And I think over this last year, I smoked some tobacco, never cigarettes because I just don't like all the additives, but just tobacco itself, I smoked some and it wasn't my thing. I started coughing up chunks and I was like, not for me. So I quit. I guess it's a bit harder for people who've been on it for a while, but I guess that's my 2 cents.
All right. Okay. Questions for Runner before he leaves? All right. Thank you, Runner. Anyone else? I saw some other hands up here before, so, oh, here we go. All right. Name and home address.
My name is Kyle Clocky. My address is 46743 County Road 13. I'm Urkel's roommate.
Okay. Go ahead and spell your last name, please.
Klocke.
Okay, thank
So
you.
the only thing I really have to say just from listening and just putting my 2 cents in is that from living here, if it did get changed to 21, I would have to go to Mankato to take my purchases over there, I guess I'd have to say. But I hope you guys come to a decision soon so we can just start figuring out and move on, I guess. I guess that's all I have to say, though. But thank you guys for listening.
All right. We will have a decision very shortly. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh.
Hello again, Nissa Fell, F-E-L-L, and I'm at 225 College Avenue here in St. Peter. I am a nurse practitioner up at Gustavus, and Gustavus just announced that we will be becoming a tobacco-free college as of July 1st, 2018. So that's super exciting because we have significantly less than 10% of our student population that identify to ever having used tobacco products. So there is a very, very, very small percentage of Gustavus students that this would impact. And as we become a tobacco-free school, we will see more students choosing to come to Gustavus because we are a tobacco-free school. They will want that environment. Their parents will encourage them to go to that environment. We joined one of 1,800 schools in the US that are tobacco-free, and we are the 50th school in Minnesota. So the momentum to curb young adults in this choice has been going on for what I'm aware of is 10 plus years, as I've been working at Gustavus for that long and working on this mission. The stats are there from the healthcare community, and you cannot argue them. Nationwide, worldwide, we know that tobacco products kill people. I have yet to find a tobacco user in the middle of their life that say, I am so glad I started using tobacco products. In fact, I would guess well over 60 to 70% of tobacco users will tell you, I wish I wouldn't have started. I have family who has died because of tobacco use. I have close friends. My parents have close friends. It is nothing you want to witness. It is nothing you want to go through. And because of the psychology of the human brain, if we can curb and help young adults not purchase tobacco until they're 21 or older, we will continue to improve the health of the U.S. and our youth, which is something I don't know how anyone could vote against. To kind of address the food part of the comments, which I'm not sure how it fully ties in with tobacco, the UK has banned all, like you can't buy macaroni and cheese in the UK because of the dyes in the cheese, the powdered cheese. So all those processed foods they've banned, which I think the US will eventually get there as well. So that's definitely something I'm passionate about as well. And I think there's another step that we could help youth. The dollar menu at McDonald's is hamburgers, French fries. It's not the salads. There's a lot that we can do on health. This is one topic that this room full of people, most of us are very passionate about and will continue to be passionate about. And when this ends, I can guarantee you we're going to find something else to be passionate about. But tonight, the issue is about Tobacco 21, and I really hope that for the youth of St. Peter and for the state of Minnesota, as Minneapolis student, or it's not student council, Minneapolis city council, my daughter's here, she's on student council and wanted me to put a note in about that. But they voted unanimously to support this. Their council was unanimous in this decision. That made me so proud. And now that Minneapolis has gone, I think other communities are going to go, and we can jump on this early on and be one of the leaders in the state, so that when the state goes, because I think it's going to happen, we can say, yep, we're from St. Peter, and we went early on in this because we care. Thank you.
Just a second. Questions? Steve?
Did you take an actual survey of the students at Gustavus?
We do. So every other year, we do the American College Health Assessment, National College Health Assessment. So there's like this big long acronym, ACHA, NCHA data. So every other year, we talk about sleep, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, of course, sexual education, not education, sexual practices. I'm trying to think of what else. Pretty much all the college type things that we have to survey students about. So every other year we do that. The 2018 data just came out and I didn't have a chance to pull that. It's kind of buried within the college website. But 2016, which is what I was referencing, it's significantly less than 10% in the last 30 days have used, and majority, like well over 70%, have never used.
What do you know what type of or what percentage of response you receive from your students?
It's always statistically significant, so we always get more than 20% or 25%. This past year we had a significant number of students. I want to say, so we have about 2,200 students, and I want to say we had close to 600 students complete, 600 or 700 students complete the survey, which is the most we've had in the last few years.
That's not really a whole lot, is it? It's not
Right,
even
but for any
50%.
study, statistically
Okay.
significant, yep.
And then do you survey your staff at Gustavus?
We have in the past. The last survey we did of staff was in 2014. We did a campus-wide survey, and I'm trying to pull the numbers out of my head. I want to say of staff, it was like 5 or 4% that used tobacco products.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Susie?
Do you know what year MSU and Mankato chose to become a tobacco-free campus several years back? I'm guessing it was probably around 2011 or so. Do you know which year it was offhand?
I don't
And
know.
More to the point, have you heard any feedback from that university as Gustavus was making its decision? Did you inquire with them or get any feedback about pros or cons from their perspective?
I didn't specifically reach out to them. Nationally, no school has ever reversed their decision. The initial movement started as smoke-free schools, so a lot of schools were going smoke-free, and now the movement is tobacco-free. And many of those smoke-free schools are now going tobacco-free, but you've never seen a reversal the other way nationally. And like I said, there's 1,800 schools that are tobacco-free. There's significantly more than 2,000 that are smoke-free. But I'm not familiar with MSU enough to know
Just curious.
feedback from them. Yep, good question.
To Stephen's point about 600 out of 2,200, I'd have to do the math, but I think that's probably about the same as the turnout in the last presidential election.
I was
So-
going to ask for voting, how does that go, but I didn't want to go there.
Unfortunately, and I know that that's a better response rate than the last city election, so
I would
be
have to agree.
careful what we challenge.
Thanks, because I wanted to bring it up but didn't.
Anyone else? Nissa, is Gustavus an alcohol-free camp?
We are, you have to be 21 to have it in your dorm, so of legal age. So if you are underage and caught with alcohol, there's a sanction grid that is followed. So first offense, second offense, depending on how much, what type, that type of
So
thing.
if you're 21, you can.
Right, if you're 21, you can consume on campus. So we're not a dry campus in that it's not allowed at all. Our of age students, because we're residential, we realize too that, you know, they're college kids and they want to live college
And I
life.
should have asked Mary or maybe Sandy when they were up here. I know when that the Nicollet County campus is a tobacco-free campus. Am I right, Mary?
Correct.
So people that made that decision, how come I see them standing next to the sign that says tobacco-free and standing there having a cigarette? I know you don't have the answer. I'm just trying to make the point that you can call yourselves whatever you want, but until you back that up, until you do something about it, that's the situation that
Right.
really means.
And you'll never stop everyone, and that's not our intent. We're not asking people to quit.
But,
We're just saying we don't want you using on our property. And same with alcohol. College students drink underage.
Really? When did
Right?
that start?
Like, that's a fact. Are we going to curb it all? Absolutely not. But we have laws that we're supposed to follow, and there are consequences. We do the best that we can, and this would not eliminate under 21 tobacco use by any means, but it would significantly help, which would then help in a lot of other ways as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? All right, we will move to our discussion on it. If everyone is done speaking, we thank you. I thank you for all of your input. It's very, very important. Anyone have any comments they'd like to make as to what we've heard?
We just want to make sure all the microphones are on too. We've got a couple of them that you got to turn off, so just hit your button, make sure you're red.
Is on there. Thank you. You're good. Everyone else is good. Thank you.
Susie?
I have a couple comments.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're here for.
To respond to your question about McDonald's and other types of unhealthy food, I think there is a very, very important distinction because it gets, in my mind, to the heart of this discussion, which is the story of addiction. Friends who know me may know that I have a sweet tooth and I love donuts. Donuts, I will drive 50 miles out of my way to try a new donut shop. But I'm not addicted to donuts. And I think there aren't too many people in the world who are. Unhealthy food is bad for our bodies, but with proper guidance, most of us can stop eating that unhealthy food. And it's a lot different from tobacco or alcohol, which is an actual addiction. To me, that's the problem. You know what? A kid smoking a cigarette once, that's not going to kill them. The problem is that once they smoke a few, they may not be able to quit. Some people can, but we know, evidence is showing us that a lot of people can't. And so to me, there's a very important distinction there. We can indeed work on taking out the most dangerous products in manufactured food and restrict the amount of unhealthy and fatty foods that kids are exposed to. But those are on an entirely different plane from protecting kids from addiction. And so that's why this issue is different in my mind. As far as age and choice and preventing folks from smoking, there were some individuals here in the audience who had very valid points. I don't believe that this ban is going to be the thing that convinces any one individual aged 18, 19, or 20 to stop smoking. In my mind, it's mostly breaking that link to younger kids who are not currently allowed to buy cigarettes, but are accessing them. The evidence we heard at a few of our previous occasions was very compelling to me that there is a direct link there. There are 14 and 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds who are starting to smoke, and they're starting to smoke because of their connection to their slightly older peers. If those 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, if none of them were sharing cigarettes with younger people, my concern about this issue would be less, because I think that most 18-year-olds do have much more ability to make those decisions than their younger peers. But we've seen a connection, and we see a pathway between 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds sharing with younger. Another alternative would be to further criminalize that action, but I don't really think that that's the right approach. And so at this point, I think that the right approach is just to break that chain. One of the numbers that we had heard was that of children under the age of 18 who start smoking, 1/3 of them will die from tobacco. I'll look in the audience to see if I got that number right. Am I on or off? Somebody can, yeah. That's one of the numbers that I've seen in some of this documentation. That's a very sobering statistic. And I think that we need to do better in protecting the youth from those mistakes. Lots of, and there are consequences to those mistakes, but the consequence should not be suffering and death, which is the case for tobacco addiction. So those are my comments.
Anyone else?
And I'll shut up.
Anyone else? Steve?
First of all, you know, I voted one way the last time we were together. And the first thing I want to say is I disagree with to address this issue again. It's a slippery slope that we could address anything that this council decides. Whether someone's missing or not is immaterial. So I don't like parliamentary moves of this nature. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. The thing that bothers me the most about this vote is I'm disappointing some of my council members that I truly respect and I honor their opinions because I've worked with them now for 5 years and I value their opinions and I respect their positions. So this afternoon on the internet and I did some looking and it's interesting for those of us that are old enough to remember the Marlboro men. All of them died from cancer. And some of the, I don't watch television, but I only watch old shows. And I hate to admit this, but Gunsmoke right now is my favorite show. And for those of us that are old enough to remember Kitty, she died from lung cancer and she had throat cancer. And she became an avid spokesman for the Cancer Society. And when the United States started addressing smoking issues in our country, the country that buys cigarettes from the United States is China. And since China's taken on purchasing of the tobacco products from the United States, the rate of cancer is starting to increase. I looked at some of the products that are in tobacco products, and it was interesting to read all that stuff. And also I found out that a lot of European countries had the ability to sell cigarettes to 14-year-olds over the counter. That's correct. But Europe as a whole is starting to increase their age of selling tobacco products to their citizens. Many of the European countries have moved to 19, and they're continuing to raise it because they understand, as this country does, the impact of the use of tobacco products. So when we vote, the only thing that I would like to say to the members of the council that I've had discussions with is I have to vote with my intellect and my heart, and I know what is the right thing to do. So thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead. Sorry.
I will be maintaining my no vote just for the simple fact, and I know all the statistics, I've read a lot of it, I've listened to quite a few on the phone, but it's a simple fact that within 10 minutes or 15, they can still have cigarettes. That's it.
Anyone else? Susie, you talked about the point that I brought up about the eating habits. Fine, I understand that. When we first started talking about this in this meeting, or one of our first meetings, you had said I had brought up the thing on how it may affect other businesses and stuff like that. And you said, well, I sure hope it doesn't affect businesses. Mm-hmm. When the Smoker's Choice, the tobacco shop at the south end of town, when they, I don't know how long they've been there, 3 years, whatever it is. I really don't think have the foresight in their business model to say, hey, St. Peter's, after we've been here and we've established our business. And that's what we're doing. And they do good besides selling things that, I wish they weren't here, but they are here. They provide a service for maybe not the 18 to 21-year-olds, but they provide a service for people to try to quit smoking. Their vapor product has 0 nicotine in it, and it gets added in, and what they do is they try to encourage people to decrease their use. If 25% of their business, which like I say, I wish the state would do something statewide to change this, but 25% of their business is 18 to 21-year-olds, and most of them are from Gustavus. I don't know if they'll survive. And if I'm another business in St. Peter, and that's kind of why I brought up the food thing, who knows what you guys or anybody's gonna change on me in the future after I've established a business. That's what I have a problem. The other thing is, I looked up, because someone mentioned to me that Minneapolis had voted for it, and I looked up the reason, according to the paper, Minneapolis paper, the reason they voted for it was to be in line with the surrounding communities that had already changed their ordinance. So if we work under that assumption, then, and that logic, then we should wait for Mankato. Not only Mankato, we should wait for Kasota. We should wait for Cleveland, LeSueur, and Nicollet. And then we should change, if we're using that Minneapolis vote as a guideline, because that's their determination on why they changed it, to comply with other people around them, the Crystals and the smaller inner suburbs that have already changed theirs. Those are my last comments. Anyone else?
May I respond?
Oh, sure.
We have 2 numbers here that were presented tonight that don't completely match with one another. And so I don't know how to take those 2 pieces of data together. We heard from a representative of Gustavus that a minority of Gustavus students are active smokers, some fraction less than half of 600. No, that's not right. That's who responded. Sorry, I'm not doing good with my math tonight either. But only a fraction of those 2,200 are smokers. We also heard from the gentleman here, or from your conversation with the owners of the tobacco shop, that the majority of their customers, or not the majority, but a large portion, somewhere around 25% of their customers,
20 to 25%.
20 to 25% are from Gustavus.
Are from 18 to 21.
18 to 21. Okay,
Not
so
from
it could
Gustavus.
be. Okay, so maybe those numbers match up. I can't sit here and do the math to figure that quite out, but I'm not quite sure how to make those 2 things reconcile in my mind. One could argue that Gustavus going to a tobacco-free campus might have a major impact on their business, especially considering that the vast, vast majority of students are now housed on campus. They would only be able to smoke off campus and away from their home. So there may already be some sort of impact that we as a city don't have any control over. To your greater point of whether or not it's fair for the city to make changes that alter their business model, that's part of our responsibility. And we make changes every time we change a fee structure that has some sort of impact on a business. When we wrote off the fees for home daycares to get licensed, that created more competition to the existing center-based daycares. We have to make those choices sometimes in determining what's best for the community as a whole. And in this case, it may be the fact that there is a negative impact for some of our businesses in town. I am hopeful that the impact is not so great that we send someone out of business over it. But ultimately, if it really has to come down to that decision, I'm going to decide on behalf of the health of people in our community over business profits. And I don't say that lightly, because I understand the negative impacts that it can have. And as you said, they are providing some very good services in helping people quit using nicotine. And I would hate to see that service lost in our community. But ultimately, I can't justify doing things the way we've always done them, even if it's negatively impacting people's health for the sake of one or a few businesses in town.
Go ahead, John.
To follow your point, to companies in town to bring in competitors to existing businesses that, in their view, are putting them out of business or severely impacting the business. But we, as a council and the EDA, vote to loan them city money to do that because we see it as for the betterment of the community, which is what this is.
You lost me. This is what?
Passing this to promote public health in the city of St. Peter is a positive. Loaning money in the EDA to bring business into town that may compete with existing businesses in town, if we see that as for the betterment of the community, we do that. We loan them public money. Now, did you follow? You and Todd, I don't know why it is.
It's still, we're changing in a negative manner.
I am not disputing that.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing that.
And it's, like I say, Steve used it before, it's a slippery slope. Go ahead.
I can't remember this taking place. When the drinking age was raised from 18 to 21, was there a significant impact? Did a lot of bars go out of business when that happened? I don't know.
They changed it for everybody. It wasn't just changed here.
Okay.
That's my point. We changed it as a state law, a federal law.
Okay.
It was changed for everyone. We're just changing it here. That's my point.
Okay.
So it's going to have the same impact on the local businesses whether we do it or the state does it. They lose 20 to 25%.
Yes, but then,
of the
yes,
business.
exactly.
Oh, okay.
But in the meantime, nobody else in this area, except for North Mankato, is doing it.
So other businesses outside the community will do better, but the one in town will do no worse than if the state had passed it.
Right, I would think so.
And you're in favor of the state passing it.
Yeah, well, they kind of indicated that let's make a level playing field for everyone.
No,
And we're not providing a level playing field.
You personally are in favor of the state passing the...
Definitely. I'm in favor of a regional one. What we first talked about, months ago now, what we first talked about was doing it contingent upon North Mankato and Mankato doing it, and Mr. Grams said he thought we could do it alone. And I thought we had a good compromise. You even said it would be good to have
Yes.
the pressure keep putting on Mankato, and if we passed it without them, that we would lose that.
Yes.
So that's my point. Anything else? If not, the ordinance amending the St. Peter City Code for business licensing and regulations appears on pages 35 and 36. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Brand,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
No.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer,
Nay.
Councilmember Guan.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Nay.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 4 to 3. Moving on. Next up, we have new business, and the first is the hospital parameters authorizing issuance and sale of bonds. And Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Shannon Sweeney from David Drown Associates, here to talk about two resolutions that were included in your packet. Resolutions are referred to as parameters resolutions, and that they provide parameters through which the city administrator and the mayor can execute a bond purchase agreement for the sale of bonds. We have two funding components that we're working with on the hospital project. As you may recall, we have an overall budget of a little over $45 million for the project. We're intending to fund that project budget through three different sources of funding that include a USDA direct loan of about $33 million, a private long-term obligation of $5 million, and the hospital will be utilizing cash of about $7.5 million. You'll also recall that the USDA does not provide construction financing, and so we have to put in place two funding components at this time for the construction of the project. That includes a temporary loan or a construction loan of about $24 million because we're not going to refinance the 2010 bonds at this point. That will get rolled into the final long-term loan from the USDA. And the private long-term lending, that's $5 million. So we have two notes that we're looking to secure for the construction of the project along with the hospital's equity. Again, in your packet are the two resolutions that establish parameters through which the mayor and city administrator can execute a bond purchase agreement, which essentially locks an interest rate in general terms that would then be presented to you for award at a future meeting. Reason we use this tool in this instance is more of a timing issue, and that we're looking for some flexibility to work with multiple lenders in order to negotiate terms and have a process that allows us to present you with what we find to be the most acceptable result. Typically within the industry, we're on a normal sale, we're taking bids on a specific day, which happens to be your council meeting, and presenting them to you that evening. Essentially within the marketplace, lenders aren't generally willing to hold a rate for more than approximately a 24-hour period. And so we found it to be complicated to try to get multiple quotes in a negotiated process that was confined to that 24-hour period when you happen to be meeting. And so we've asked for this parameters resolution to give us additional time and flexibility to work with multiple parties to find the best deal to provide this construction lending and the $5 million in permanent long-term financing for the project. So resolution gives us that flexibility. Again, we come back to you with an award resolution that would have lots of specific terms and conditions, but in the meantime, the mayor and city administrator would be authorized to essentially sign an agreement that has some obligation with regard to the sale of these bonds. And so I'm happy to answer your question on it. Ultimately, it's some flexibility to negotiate and give us some additional time to do that. The resolutions do come back to the council for final award. More than happy to answer your questions on this.
Questions? John?
We need to sell these bonds so we have money for the construction of the hospital. Once the hospital's built in 2 years, then we receive the money from the USDA and use those funds to pay off these bonds. So the term of these bonds, is there a specific short term?
30 months is what's recommended. We expect to hopefully be able to refinance them before that, but we've given ourselves an extra 4 or 5 months in case things happen.
So we've settled on 30 months?
Yes.
Okay, and with something that short, you still haven't decided if you need a credit rating on these or not?
We will not be obtaining a credit rating. Your hospital is too small to get an investment grade credit rating.
If it were a 20-year bond, people would be more nervous. A 30-month bond, they
That's
don't think we're
correct.
going to go belly up that fast.
You basically, it's sold based on a commitment from the federal government to provide long-term funding. You have a letter of conditions, and we'll soon have a Guide 1 letter that evidence that commitment that the federal government's providing long-term lending for the vast majority of the project. And so one of the things I mentioned to the Hospital Commission, I should have mentioned earlier, the Hospital Commission did recommend proceeding with this plan. But one of the things we did mention is that we have locked in the vast majority of the project financing with the USDA. We're in an environment now of increasing interest rates, and so that would be of concern in most instances because, you know, we haven't secured our ultimate lending. But actually we have, because that $33.3 roughly million, we already have a rate that's locked. And the only thing it can do is go lower. USDA's commitment to us is to provide that at the maximum interest rate, and if interest rates happen to trend lower, they will provide a lower interest rate at closing, but it can't go any higher. And so, again, we're in a good position with regard to long-term lending for this project. The USDA required us to obtain $5 million in additional private lending for the project. They wanted to see a private component, and so we are securing that. That will be a shorter term. We have some ability to pay that off more quickly, and so we'll save on interest by reducing that term to something far less than the 35-year term on the USDA loan. So.
Okay. That loan again was, right now is set at 3 1/8?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Shannon? Steve?
Shannon, what's the difference between a 2018 B bond, a 2018 C bond, and a 2018 A bond? What does that mean to me?
That's how we name them. They're named in a series. We start with A, B, and C in the given year that they're issued. The 2018 A bonds, which we just issued to refinance the medical office building, are the first series that we've issued for this project. So we refinanced roughly $2 million in existing debt that we had that was secured to finance the medical office building, which is only a small portion of the hospital campus. So we refinanced that component and saved about $272,000 in interest expense by doing that. The 2018 B bonds is the second financing component for this project, and it'll be the temporary bonds that are issued in order to fund, provide construction lending for a portion of the project costs that will in turn be paid off by the USDA long-term loan. The 2018 C bonds are the $5 million in private lending that the federal government is requiring us to obtain. And so we simply name them by year and then a letter starting with the letter A when we name bond issues.
So then when the final financing, is that going to be D then?
No, that'll be issued in 2020 more than likely, and it would probably be the 2028.
Oh, okay, I got it.
So,
I got it.
see, the series
We gotta have
starts over
something, your new finance director, we have to have a sequential order so it all makes sense.
So we're doing that because of the new finance director?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna blame it on tonight.
Okay, that's good.
Anyone else? The resolution approving the authorization for the issuance of the bond, of $24 million appears on page 39. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Kwame?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Resolution passes. Next up, we have the resolution approving the authorization of the issuance of the $5 million bond, 2018 C. Is there any questions? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Not any questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Kwame?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Resolution passes. Thank you, Shannon. Next up, we have a request for Gustavus Alumni Weekend. Todd.
Mayor, members, the information is included on page 41 in your packet. This is very similar to an event that they held last year in parking lot number 5, very similar time frame. In this instance, they're looking to hold this event in the Nicollet County Bank parking lot. The reason that you're involved is a couple-fold. I'm sorry, First National Bank. Thank you, Barb. Is that they're looking to close down a portion of Gray Street between, which lies between Minnesota Avenue and 3rd Street and 3rd Street. And so you can see that in the information that was included and on the image that I have on the projector here. So a number of different things. This would be set up to take place on June 9th through the 10th, where they'd have set up and take down. The event would be on the 9th. They'd look to use city electricity, much like they used last time in parking lot number 5. There's a transformer in the alleyway. They're looking to install a tent, which really you don't have control over. Tent isn't going to be on your property or on the city's property. They're looking to put restroom supplies and all those. Oh, I got to go back here, sorry. They'll also have restrooms. They'll provide liquor through a licensed vendor with the appropriate licensing, and lighting, restrooms, and refuse control and pickup would be provided through Gustavus. One change that you see on this image, which is in your packet, is the location of the alley closure. They have the ability to either allow or disallow the closure of the alley. They are looking to close a portion of it, and it's their responsibility to communicate with the property owners and the merchants within that area, but you can certainly provide for closing down the street. The difference is really on the north portion of that alley. Because the transformer is on the easterly side of the alley and they're looking to get power across it, we're looking for a more ingenious way to allow that to happen without prohibiting the use of vehicular traffic. So if you do approve this, you're giving a little bit of latitude to your staff to work with Gustavus to help figure that out in the best way that we can. If you have other questions, I'm happy to try and provide answers for that, but the resolution for this is on page 47.
Questions? Susan?
Why Grace Street? Why right there?
I think a couple of reasons that they've chosen this is, first of all, the parking lot is smoother than parking lot number 5. And I think that's a big factor. I think they have a willing participant in First National Bank. It would provide for ease of access. If you're just talking about the street closure, that's a location that they can, on the curb line, utilize for a number of different things, including positioning of vendors in that area, allowing for specialized parking if necessary for vendors to control their goods and money and those kind of things.
Ed?
Basically the same question.
Okay.
Why they wanted to close that section of the road.
And if I could, I don't want to disturb you, but I know you're important. Yeah, please, sorry about that. We'll have to figure out that out for next time. We have new microphones. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's the rationale for that.
It's a
Frankly,
South Side
how my office
conspiracy.
looks at this is there has to be a community component.
Oh, this light's on.
Which means that there has to be some portion of the event that's available to the public to enter for free. And so this would be available for more than just Gustavus students or Gustavus alums to participate in. This is a one-night event. And so it would be accessible to the public to participate in the music and be there as well. And so that's really the rationale and the threshold that I use to allow for a request to come before you related to use of public property, in this instance, the street closure.
If we're closing just the west half of Grace Street, just east of 3rd, people coming south on 169, will there be signs or barricades to keep them from turning into the dead end?
Well, John, frankly, I'm looking for a little bit of how that electricity can cross that alley.
Not the alley. People going south on 169, turning west onto Grace Street into a dead end.
If the alley was open on either side of this location, the map would be drawn just a little bit different. And so my hope is to allow both of those alleys to be open, or at least access, John. So if somebody came in there, certainly we'd have signage. But if someone came off Minnesota Avenue turning west into Grace Street, they wouldn't be dead-ended. They could traverse the alley either south or hopefully north. There's an alley
Right.
south.
Yeah, okay. But there will be signage to
Yeah.
discourage them
Yeah.
onto Grace.
I would hate to use this term discourage, but to alert them to what
Alert,
they need to do.
inform.
Road closed.
And they're expecting somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people?
Yes, that's what
And,
they believe.
and I'm maybe reading this wrong. It talked about 2 porta potties and a wash station? Is that enough for 1,000 people?
We would encourage them to have
It's really
more
big.
if it really happens.
Really big?
It's a really big one, porta potty.
Yeah, we prioritize.
A multi-hole? How does that work?
From a staff perspective.
It's a
we
two-story.
prioritize.
2-story?
Oh, boy.
And this isn't to answer specifically your question about how many, but we do prioritize, and if an event only should have one porta potty, we require that one porta potty to be a handicapped porta potty.
And that's listed, 1 handicapped, 1 standard, 1 wash station. I don't know, it seemed, we don't require, we just suggest.
That is correct. You do not have an ordinance that requires John. And so we strongly suggest, based on the experience that we have and what's available.
Ed, I know you have inside facilities at Redmond. Do you guys, when you have your dances and stuff, do you use, rent a porta potty? For
We
that?
have the insides, but then we usually rent 2 of them for outside use. Just
And you have pretty good crowds there.
Yep.
sometimes. Okay.
If the council would like us to send the message back that we think you need more, we're
No,
happy
we-
to do
we-
that.
we-
That's not really an obstacle for them.
I think they, as event organizers,
At times, that happens.
Jeff?
Mike, if I could get your mic.
Your light's not on.
I'm sorry about that.
Today. The one thing I guess that I would bring to the table was just talking about if they've had too many and they decide to park downtown, is there some sort of a way that they could get a message to the police department, or are they going to say lot number 5 is the designated spot where people can park overnight without getting tickets? What is our message for that type of situation?
If I may, let me change your question, in that they believe that the vast majority of this event are alums, and so there'll be a shuttle bus from campus to this location.
Okay.
So they don't see, nor do we see, a substantial issue with parking in that area. This might be a little bit more complicated. As you'll see later in your agenda, so there'll be a lot of activity going on in town, and so we haven't dealt with those two things at the same time. We don't have a great system to provide a broad alert other than through social media that parking might be tight downtown. There is actually lots of parking in this area, including parking lot number 5. And so we're going to learn a little bit from this as well. But I don't have a specific padding on how that's going to happen. But we would likely use social media to alert people if there's a substantial crunch for parking downtown.
One other thing I'd like to point out too is just from the standpoint of parking downtown, it's quite likely it's June. There could be a wedding dance at the Armory, the old Armory, and so that might bring some challenges to it as well.
I think it's a wonderful problem to have.
Absolutely.
That's going on in our community, that people have to walk more than a block to their events.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that people will get.
If they park it
Whatever we
legally.
can do to avoid that, I'd be happy to circumvent beforehand.
Yeah, I think whatever we can do, certainly Gustavus will be providing some information. Certainly Gustavus will be providing some information.
In advance to the alum groups that are really hosting this and are likely to participate in this. And so I hope that helps alleviate some of the problem that you've mentioned.
Okay. Anyone else? Ed?
I just why they need the road closed, because I've had several huge parties in the Redmond parking lot, at my parking lot. And I haven't asked to close Mulberry. I just don't understand it, but I guess.
It certainly would be at the pleasure of the council. If you wanted to say you can't close the street, that is certainly at your pleasure.
if it's a problem this year, they'll be back next year. We have alums who have graduated every year. We'll do this again.
When this event was held in parking lot number 5, it was off the alternate block on the image here where it says, right image, where it says Great Street. Last year, that's correct.
Wasn't it moved to one side last year because of storms?
No, I don't believe so.
Jeff?
Just to your point, Ed, do you think it'd be possible doing that? Would that be something that the street dance might want to morph into down the road? I mean, this just gives it that viability or that option. No? Big enough? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's.
I don't want to close the street down by Mulberry. I think it's just goofing up traffic. People are creatures of habit. They're gonna.
Well, let's try it. And if it's a problem, let's address it down the road. I don't know if that's sufficient. Susie?
Can I just
Susie? It went off in the middle of there.
Can we just add to a future workshop a discussion about parking lot number 5 and the pavement within it? I understand the reason we haven't been investing a lot there is because we have high hopes of seeing some sort of development going into that space at some point, and so we've kind of always decided that, well, putting a lot of money into asphalt in a lot that could get torn up in 2 or 3 or 4 years isn't a very good. We've been saying that for quite a few years now, and maybe we ought to just talk to Pete and figure out what kind of cost it would be, because there are more and more events coming to town between this event and let's see, what's the Oktoberfest and a few other things that use that area. Maybe it's worth it even for just a few years of use. So can we just talk about that at some future time? Or Todd, you can respond now.
If I can, certainly more on an agenda for you for workshop. You'll have to give us a little bit of time to do some more investigation on that and some research. I would tell you that from a staff perspective, you've articulated 50% of the rationale for us not recommending to you to redo that parking lot. The other 50% of that rationale is that the subsurface there is in would require substantial excavation, and the cost per parking stall would be significant. And I don't know that you want to go there on those two issues, but that would certainly be up to the city council to decide, and we're happy to provide you information so you can.
Go ahead.
And maybe it's just good to get that on the record tonight so that people at home who are listening in and are thinking, gosh, why don't they just fix parking lot number
It heaves.
5?
I mean, people who have been down there and use it, it heaves so badly from Thost Frost cycle.
I park there regularly. So.
Yeah. And so that's a substantial piece of the rationale from a staff. But, we're happy to try and provide information to you.
So, for folks who are listening from home, it's not a simple fix to repave parking lot number 5. And so even though that might be a better location for an event like this, it's so rocky right now that it might be a safety hazard for folks, and it would be a very expensive fix. So maybe just enough to let everyone at home know those 2 facts.
The resolution approving city assistance for Gustavus Adolphus alumni event appears on pages 47 and 48. Is there a motion for approval?
Before we do that,
Excuse me?
Todd, does the resolution need to change about the alley? Because right now it says close it.
Yeah, I'm looking for additional latitude in relation to the alley.
Oh,
And
sorry.
see if we can solve the electric issue in an alternate way to allow that to be open, or at least traffic flow to occur. It might be somewhat restricted because of the level of activity going on there, but that I think would be very helpful.
Who made the motion over here?
I did.
Jerry, will you please
Yes.
amend that to?
I would amend that to include that.
Okay. All right.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember
Aye.
Mayor Zeno.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin. Aye. Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Next up, we have the city assistance request for Blues Fest. And before you get started, Todd, I noticed on page 49, but it is okay on the resolution. On the first paragraph, it says for the park on January 19th instead of January 9th, which I don't know if anybody refers to this or not, but
June
just so-
9th. Yeah, thank you. You're right. It should be
And this part of it. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you. Mayor members, this relates to Ambassadors Blues Fest to take place on June 9th. This will be in Minnesota Square Park using electricity and picnic tables. They plan to install a tent following their contact with Gopher State One Call. They'd like to use your restrooms and supplies and additional keys for the supply areas. The restrooms are open, but the supplies are under lock and key. Also use of the gate key to allow limited traffic, limited vehicles into the event for hauling of the equipment for the performance and the artists and their equipment. They'd also pay for police reserves on the 9th. And do all the normal things like publicly indicating they can't have dogs in the park, and vendors need to be licensed, and certainly here, as with the previous action, they have to have the $1.5 million of insurance covering you for those kind of events. It also then would provide for, they provide for their own refuse disposal, recycling, and bring the park back to its pre-event condition. Again, the information is on page 49 with the resolution starting on page 53 for this year's Blues Fest.
Okay. Questions? Not the resolution approving request for assistance for Ambassadors Blues Fest, pages 53 and 54. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make
move, Mr.
motion to
Mayor.
approve.
Steve first, Ed second.
Okay.
All right.
Whose mic was on?
Any questions at this time? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Quimby.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Carbon. Aye. Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Next up, we have the Community Spirit Park Maintenance Agreement, and Todd and Pete.
If you have a very specific question that's challenging to answer, but this is an agreement that we've been working on for a long time, and certainly the city council's been involved in establishing the shared use agreement that you entered into a couple of years ago. This is, in some respects, an extension of that, and the information included in your packet, I think describes that pretty well. It outlines city and school district responsibilities and obligations relative to the park portion of the area that you see within your packet, and I'll show an image of that. It's really the colored images above that bold black line, or what in the real world would be north of that bold black line. This establishes a way for the school district to help participate in the areas that are not only owned by you, but them in the maintenance for this year. This agreement ends at the end of this year. There's a list of services, a list of rates, standards that have been identified. Pete and his team have worked very diligently with the school district to identify those standards with anticipated amount of use that we might see, and the opportunity for how those costs would be shared overall for the community use. This is something that you've, I think, envisioned for quite a while, and we're finally getting to it. A little bit different than last year, but I think this has the potential to work out very well. Our goals are certainly to meet the financial needs of both the school district and the city, but I think even more importantly, meet the community needs for use out there, and making sure that the facilities are suitable for their use and meet their expectations. And so we see that throughout the body of the agreement. Again, the packet includes on page 57 a copy of the agreement with which the school district agreed to last time. Rates are included in Exhibit C. Exhibit D lists off the standards, and I'll show those on the overhead here on the internet. They were in color, and so you can see how everything looks here and how those standards and the level of service are put together based on various portions of Community Spirit Park. Different areas need different levels of maintenance for their best utilization, and so that's how this has been determined. Happy to try and answer questions, or leave Pete to answer the tougher ones if you have any.
Questions? Jeff?
I have one question. As I go through the agreement, I noticed it isn't until Exhibit C that we actually, Exhibit D that we actually addressed irrigation. And so I'm just kind of curious about that. If you could touch a little bit more about the irrigation, whose responsibility, inches and level of service. Sure. Can you touch more on that?
Sure. Yeah, the way the irrigation systems were set up, Jeff, was that each entity put their own irrigation system in, with the idea that eventually we want that to look like a common campus.
Mm-hmm.
We want everything to flow across that property, so even though we know and they know there's boundaries on that premises, you shouldn't know that when you're out there, so you can walk across the fields and you can't tell who's doing what, so everything's maintained equally. We don't know if the fields are going to react that way or that provide that, but we hope that that's how it comes out. We both have a significant amount of irrigation out there. That's something new for the high school. You know, they usually don't irrigate. That's not something that they put a lot of money into. They've got other needs and infrastructure and a variety of different things where we've had associations participate with us to upgrade ball fields and soccer fields to get irrigation systems in. And so what we're trying to do again is work with associations. The school has been very active in working with us and talking to associations for improvements. So the idea is that everything flows out there as one big property, and we will work with the school to discuss the amount of rain that's needed out there, and it may vary from zone to zone how much we put on those fields based on how the soil was moved out there. So it's going to take us a year or two to adjust to those numbers and to get a handle on how that place will operate.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Steve?
Pete, I have one question. You know, being this athletic person that I am.
Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We'll make you hit your button.
Oh,
I gotta get that fixed. I'm really sorry about that.
Say, what is a multi-purpose field?
It's gonna be used for, at certain times it'll be used for soccer practices, soccer scrimmages, and at certain times it'll be used for football activities, so it can be painted in different uses is what the real categories would be.
It's all grass though, right?
It's all grass, it's
Okay.
all athletic turf, it's all gonna be fine and groomed to certain levels, but it can be used for football, lacrosse, soccer, whatever.
I had a group contact me the other day that wanted to talk about having an ultimate frisbee tournament. I had a group that contacted me the other day that wanted to have an ultimate frisbee tournament, so who knows? I think your community will help decide what utilization goes on those large grass areas.
So, Steve, if you get involved with the polo club, you know, maybe you can.
Football thing?
Polo with the horses.
Oh, I thought pole vaulting, you said a big rock around.
Anyone else?
We did have those questions, Mayor, because of,
Oh.
you're seeing soccer fields drawn on there. There's just a little bit larger than football fields, but
Right.
it gives everybody an idea of what size of field that can accommodate or that play.
Right. Well, they're big. I have a question, I guess maybe for you, Todd. Has the school board voted on this?
Yeah, they voted, and they approved this at their meeting on last Monday night.
Was it unanimous?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? The resolution approving the execution of maintenance agreement for the 2018 between the city and the school for Community Spirit Park appears on page 67. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Seaman.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Klein.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Thank you. Other permit application. Todd.
Mayor, members, for Gaddis Melbaris, he has successfully completed the background investigation, and there's nothing been found to prohibit him from having a peddler's license from the 30th of June through the end of November. This would allow door-to-door sales in residential areas. The information is in your packet.
Of what?
Thank you.
It's not in the resolution, but I know the memo had it. Okay. Questions? The resolution approving the new business license appears on page 69. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second it.
Is he approved for just selling certain things, or once he has a?
He can peddle anything. Your ordinance doesn't specify that it's required. My assumption is, and I'll look at the city attorney, is that if you wanted to stipulate certain things, my concern would be is at what level do you stipulate is only
Well,
books of certain sizes.
it's never been an issue, but I would just,
Right.
okay.
We provide peddler's license, it says peddler's license, it doesn't say.
Could you just remind folks who are listening, if they receive a knock at the door and selling something and they're suspicious about that, what should they do?
They should give us a call if they're suspicious about that. They can certainly call the police department's number at 1550, 931-1550.
And ask to see their license.
Yeah, certainly ask to see their license, and they should be able to produce a license that has my signature on it.
Anybody who's going to door-to-door selling in St. Peter is required to get a peddler license?
If they are selling door to door, they are required to have a peddler's license. I would like to distinguish that from folks that are invited. So as an example, you might go to an event, and I'll use an example from my youth where you signed up to have somebody stop by and sell the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? And so if you invited them to your home, that's different than someone who's cold calling, just stopping by, is not gonna do it.
And likewise, political candidates are not selling anything, and so they do not require licensure.
They are not required to have licensure under your peddler's permit.
Fair enough.
and the Scouts of America and the high school football team selling.
There are certain exceptions within your ordinance for groups that are related to education and religious affiliation, I believe.
So the kids don't need anything.
Those groups that are affiliated with educational institutions do not. John, as I've gotten older, it's harder for me to describe what a kid looks like. So.
When they come at Halloween and they drive a car and they got a beard.
Smoking cigarettes. Yeah.
And they're under 18.
Yeah, right.
Or 18 to 21.
That's right.
Anyway, any other questions or comments? The resolution approving, can we do this?
We have to do a second.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Garland. Aye. Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Plummer.
Aye.
Mayor Zena.
Aye. Resolution passes. Concludes our, no, excuse me, we have Mr. Rorich on a hospital expansion project.
Just before George starts out, I want to remind the council that we have a developed process related to alternates and change orders. For us to point out, this happens to be the first alternate that you would see as a part of the hospital project. And so it has a process that comes before you based on the amount of money that it is for. So George, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we are asking, the building committee and the hospital commission are recommending acceptance and approval of the alternate to expand the windows in the therapy area, as opposed to small windows at the top of the wall, which currently exist to almost floor-to-ceiling windows. It's a psychological, aesthetic benefit. We had built it in the beginning and then value engineered it out to make sure that we made budget. Therefore, it was budgeted as an alternate. As we moved a little bit through our project, we freed up about just a little over 40,000 in contingency, and now can afford to do this. It's timely. The project is starting in this area, so I think it's a good use of project money, one that can be enjoyed by the entire community as they move through therapy, if and when they show up.
I think another factor too, George, if you were done, I'm sorry, was this was recommended, just like you said, for psychological reason, but if we were going to do it later, it would cost us a lot more to retrofit these instead of doing it at this point in time. That's one of the other factors.
It's cheaper to do it right now when we're tearing everything up and when the space is not being utilized by patients and staff.
Okay. Steve?
I have one question. I believe at our last, we had discussions about raising the dollar limit that the commission had to request approval from the council to 50,000. I don't know, but it hasn't been approved yet, but.
Correct.
So would that require in the future, if they have a change order that's less than 50, that they still have to come to the council or not?
Let me review the policy that we established and provide a response to the council. You changed it up on me just a little bit, Steve, in that you talked about a change order. So let me review the policy for that. Ultimately, change orders would have to come before the city council as owner of that. It's a matter of when that would happen. Tonight, we're specifically talking about a bid alternate, which is different than a change order. So let me review that and get back to you.
Maybe it's my semantics. I'm thinking of any thing relative to the construction, if it falls within that range, above 35, if they have to yet.
Again, please let me review, and then I'll be happy to respond to the council. And if you want to talk about it at a workshop, we certainly can, so that it's more public. But my intent would be to send you all an email that provides the right answer to that.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? The resolution awarding the bid for the therapy department window alternate for the hospital expansion project appears on page 71. Is there a motion for approval?
I will move approval with the corrected date at the very end.
Missed it. What is it? Oh, 2018, John?
Well, I asked George, he's the one that wrote the memo. I don't know what his plans are.
George didn't write the resolution.
Oh,
did
we
you,
didn't.
George? Is that what you're referring to?
He says, it says May of 2017. He's
Right.
correct. It should say.
2018.
Yeah, 2018. Today's date is 2018.
Second.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
George. Thanks for waiting. Next up, we have a resolution calling for executive closed session. And Todd, you want to tell us about this before we?
I can't understate law. You're allowed to have executive session to discuss a proposed land sale, negotiation on that land sale. This is at the corner of South Washington. This is a parcel that we talked about previously. It's the intent of the city attorney and I to bring you back a report and solicit your action potentially. What you tell us during the closed session.
Okay.
The resolution providing for the closed session is on page 72.
Questions?
Third Street crosses South Washington just by the underpass.
Correct.
On the way out to the state hospital.
Under Highway 99, correct.
Anyone else? Comment? Question? The resolution calling for closed session appears on page 72. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for a closed session for the real estate transaction.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any questions now? No. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Resolution passes. So we will adjourn to closed session. If we can have everyone leave for a few minutes. It shouldn't be as long as we were last time, I don't think. And we will return to open session after that. .50 p.m. on Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. And
Pass the resolutions.
Oh, yes, sir. What did I do with them?
I thought we had, oh, that was just for that.
I think they already had.
No?
No.
No?
Here we go. Sorry about that. Too many pieces of paper today. There you go. Mayor members, what we're handing out here's a resolution for the sale of this property located at the corner of South Washington and South Third Street. The deal would be for $1,500 plus attorney's fees for the budding property owner who expressed their interest in purchasing the property. Again, you talked about this on one previous occasion and set some parameters that the city attorney and I have tried to ensure have been put in place. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer as best as I can. So this is the location. I do have the streets named incorrectly. I'm sorry I can't make my projector work in a different way, but where it says South Washington is actually Highway 99, and where it says South 3rd Street is actually South Washington, and that's my error on that. So that property has an axis, north-south axis along Washington. And so it's the budding property owner there that will be selling to the O'Connells, Ken and Christine O'Connell.
Questions? The resolution for the purchase agreement of the sale of property at southeast corner of South Washington and South 3rd Street is in the handout we just received. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Now any questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Graham? Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin? Aye. Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. Next up, we have reports. A couple of things. It was kind of warm yesterday, but seemed to be a fairly decent turnout for the Memorial Day ceremony. It was, one of those occasions which I wish we wouldn't have to do, but as far as the reason why we're doing it, but I'm glad that people take the time to recognize the commitment and the loss and the sacrifice that many have made. The other, by the time we meet again, they will have occurred. On June 9th is the Ambassadors Blues Fest, and then also that same day and evening is the Gustavus reunion, alumni reunion, and they both occur downtown and to Minnesota Square Park. So for those driving around that night, beware. You know, it might be pretty busy in some of those areas.
And the Gustavus one is open to the public
The Gustavus one is open to the public.
for a fee, an entrance fee of some kind.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there even is that. I'm not,
Yes, there is.
an entrance fee. It's $5,000, I believe, wasn't it? Is that what it was?
I think it was $10.
$10, okay. And that's all I have. Todd?
I actually have two that are on the agenda and one that shows on the projector here. The first one is city-county meeting discussion. Just want to let you know we had a city-county liaison meeting here a week and a half or 2 weeks ago now, and I think a very positive discussion. I yield the floor to the members that were in attendance if they had anything that they wanted to specifically talk about, but I thought a good discussion in a number of different areas.
There's some issues that have been dogging the group for a number of years that maybe we're moving towards some sort of resolution. One is the amount of financial support the county provides to the libraries in North Mankato and Mankato, and we have a process in place for them to be able.
And St. Peter.
Between North Mankato and St. Peter. We have a process in place for the county to examine additional information data that we are gathering in an effort to get them, convince them that it's in their best interest to increase the amount of support. The second is an area where water from rural parts of the county and the ditches come to the edge of the bluff and are no longer under the control of the ditch authorities, and in some cases are above the city of St. Peter and flow down and become our issue to deal with. And we have maybe some movement on addressing that too. So, in addition to a number of other things that are ongoing.
Okay.
Just the two things I'd like to say is I appreciate having Councilman Kwame on that commission or discussion group, and I will miss Commissioner Stenson when he finally leaves. So it'll be interesting who takes his spot and if he's open to it and receptive to input from the city as Mr. Stenson has.
Other comments about that? I'm sorry, Todd, this is your part.
No, that's the last item that I had in relation to the city county meeting. We do have on here just a brief update of the possible expansion project, and I think that's probably why George is hanging around. I think the biggest issue that I wanted to highlight is the access to the emergency room and access to the hospital has changed over the last week or two. And so we really want to direct people not only to River's Edge website, but the city's website and Facebook pages that provide additional mapping and information relative to how you can access those facilities as construction is going on. And it's going to change over the course of construction, I think, George. Isn't that accurate? Yeah, so please watch for that, how you access the emergency room, how you access urgent care, how you get to the hospital, all those things. And so give them a call, and they'll be happy to give you directions on how to get there. That's the major issue that I wanted to get out tonight.
Anyone else?
That's all I have for you.
The only thing I wanted to add, and got reminded again, that for people watching, if you can't hear us some of the time, we've had problems tonight with almost everybody's, if not everybody's, microphones. So we apologize for that. What we're going to do is reschedule this meeting and get everybody back again. So try to reproduce it and somehow. No, we apologize, and we will get it corrected for the next time. So anybody else have anything else to add?
Does that require a parliamentary move?
No, we're not going to do any of that. If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.